My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 29 years old. I never believed in miracles until that Wednesday evening when everything changed forever. As a bookkeeper at a small insurance agency in Portland, I'd been struggling to pay off my student debt while saving for a decent apartment. When I checked my lottery numbers that night, my hands started shaking. $35 million. Every single number matched perfectly. Instead of celebrating, I felt overwhelmed by fear. I'd read too many horror stories about lottery winners whose lives were destroyed by sudden wealth. Families torn apart by greed, winners harassed by endless requests, people who lost everything within years. That night, I made a decision that would test everyone I loved. I wouldn't tell anyone about the full amount. After taking the lump sum and paying taxes, I had approximately $14 million. But to my family, I would claim a much smaller inheritance from a distant relative, just enough to seem generous, without changing everything dramatically. My plan was to test how my family handled money before revealing my true situation. I created an elaborate story about receiving $25,000 from a great-aunt I'd never mentioned, and offered to share it with my struggling relatives as interest-free loans. My parents, Linda and Michael, were in their early 60s and still working despite health issues because their retirement savings weren't sufficient. My younger brother Jake had been trying to launch a small auto repair business, but lacked capital. My sister Emma was a single mother working 2 jobs to support her daughter while attending nursing school part-time. When I gathered them for Sunday dinner at my parents' modest home, I carefully presented my fabricated inheritance story. "I know this family has always helped each other through tough times," I said. "I'd like to offer small loans to help everyone with their immediate needs." The reactions revealed everything about their characters. My parents were hesitant to accept help from their daughter, worried about reversing traditional family roles. Jake was suspicious about the timing but desperate enough to accept assistance for his business dreams. Emma was grateful but insisted on a formal repayment plan, showing her determination to maintain independence. Over the following weeks, I distributed the promised funds while secretly observing how each family member used the money. My parents used their $5,000 exactly as discussed for my mother's dental work and essential home repairs. They even tried to return unused portions and began immediate repayments despite my protests. Jake invested his $7,000 in equipment for his auto shop, but I noticed through social media that he'd also purchased expensive tools beyond what we'd discussed. When his business started showing promise, he immediately expanded without building stability first, taking risks that worried me. Emma allocated her $6,000 with mathematical precision, entirely toward childcare costs and nursing school expenses. She even sent me receipt photos without being asked, treating the loan as a serious business transaction. Meanwhile, I was making subtle changes to my own lifestyle while maintaining my cover story. I moved to a better apartment, explaining it as a lucky rental deal. I replaced my unreliable car with something newer but modest. Each change required elaborate explanations that made me increasingly uncomfortable with my deception. 3 months after my lottery win, the first crisis emerged. Emma's 5-year-old daughter needed emergency surgery, leaving them with an $8,000 medical bill their insurance wouldn't fully cover. Emma called me in tears, asking if I could increase her loan. I was trapped between revealing my wealth and watching my niece suffer. I solved it by anonymously paying the hospital bill through a fictitious charitable foundation, telling Emma later that a local charity had covered the costs. Her reaction troubled me. Instead of simple gratitude, she seemed almost disappointed that the financial crisis hadn't required accessing more of my money. The deception was taking its toll on my mental health and relationships. I found myself withdrawing from social interactions to avoid constant lies. Friends noticed my upgraded lifestyle didn't match my bookkeeper's salary. I developed elaborate explanations for every small luxury, creating a web of deception that became increasingly difficult to maintain. The breaking point came at a family barbecue when I arrived in a new Acura that was clearly beyond my supposed financial means. Jake stared at the car suspiciously. "Must be some inheritance," he said coldly. "Most people I know would still be eating ramen after starting a business consulting practice." Emma's expression hardened as she examined my designer handbag and expensive highlights. "Sarah, When exactly did you come into all this money? Because the math isn't adding up. The confrontation I'd been dreading finally arrived. Under pressure from their questions and accusations, I admitted the inheritance had been larger than I'd claimed, but still couldn't bring myself to reveal the full truth. So you lied to us, Emma said flatly. You tested us with those little loans while sitting on a pile of money. You made us grovel for help while you were secretly wealthy. Jake's anger was even more direct. You gave us just enough to see how we'd react, like we were lab rats in some experiment. Meanwhile, I've been working 18-hour days trying to make something of myself. The hurt in my parents' eyes was the worst part. Honey, we could have helped you handle this, my mother said quietly. You didn't have to carry it alone. I left that barbecue in tears, finally understanding how my well-intentioned plan had damaged the relationships I was trying to protect. The tests had shown me information about my family's characters, but at the cost of their trust and respect. Overwhelmed by guilt, I sought help from a therapist who specialized in sudden wealth syndrome. Dr. Roberts helped me understand that my fear of being used for money had led me to manipulate the people I claimed to love most. True generosity comes without surveillance or judgment, she explained. Financial assistance with hidden agendas isn't really assistance, it's control. With her guidance, I prepared for complete honesty. I scheduled a family meeting and hired a financial advisor to lend credibility to what I knew would be a shocking revelation. When my family gathered in my apartment the following Sunday, the tension was thick. I took a deep breath and began. The inheritance story was partially true, but not how you think. 6 months ago, I inherited a large sum of money from the Oregon State Lottery. The stunned silence was broken by my mother's gasp. I won $35 million in the Powerball drawing. After taxes, I received approximately $14 million. The reactions around the room varied dramatically. My father looked more concerned than excited, worried about what this meant for me. My mother cried, whether from hurt at my deception or relief at the truth. I couldn't tell. Jake sat back, running his hands through his hair. This explains everything. But Sarah, why didn't you trust us enough to tell us the truth? Emma's response was the harshest. So, while my daughter needed surgery, while I was working double shifts and struggling to pay for school, you were sitting on $14 million? Watching to see if we were worthy of your real help. Her words stung because they contained undeniable truth. I had appointed myself as judge of their worthiness, testing them from a position of hidden power. You're absolutely right, I admitted. I was scared of being used, so I decided to test you instead. It was wrong, and I'm truly sorry. I distributed detailed proposals for how I wanted to help each family member, retirement security for my parents, proper business investment for Jake, and educational support for Emma. But I emphasized these were starting points for discussion, not pronouncements. These are conversations, not conditions, I stressed. I want her input on what would actually help versus what might harm our relationships. The afternoon continued with difficult conversations, emotional outbursts, and cautious reconciliations. My parents moved between hurt at my lack of trust and concern about how I would handle such wealth responsibly. Jake oscillated between excitement about business possibilities and deep disappointment at my deception. Emma remained the most affected. I'm still angry, she said bluntly. Not about the money itself, but about being manipulated. About watching my daughter suffer while you had millions. You have every right to be angry, I acknowledged. I can't undo what I did. I can only apologize and try to do better moving forward. We established a framework for moving ahead. Each family member would take time to consider my proposals, and we would reconvene in 2 weeks to make concrete plans. No more secrets, no more tests, no more surveillance. As they prepared to leave, each interaction reflected our changed reality. My father hugged me tightly, whispering, I'm worried about you, kiddo. Money doesn't make life simpler. Jake shook his head with a mixture of frustration and understanding. We could have handled this together from the start. That's what family does. Emma's parting words stayed with me longest. I would have preferred honesty with smaller help than deception with millions. The money matters less than knowing where we stand with each other. After everyone left, I sat alone in my apartment, finally free from the secret that had consumed me for months. The relationships I had tried so carefully to protect were damaged, but not destroyed. We would move forward in truth rather than deception. 1 year later, my life had transformed in ways both expected and surprising. I had purchased a comfortable home and established a small foundation focused on education. But the most significant changes occurred in my relationships and understanding of what truly constituted wealth. My parents initially refused my full financial package, concerned about becoming dependent. We reached a compromise, a retirement fund ensuring their medical needs were covered and allowing my father to retire fully. They also established their own charitable fund honoring my grandfather's military service. Jake's business flourished with proper investment and mentorship. He insisted on formal repayment structures despite my protests, celebrating each quarterly payment with pride. Our relationship evolved into genuine partnership, with him offering valuable insights for my foundation work. Emma approached the assistants methodically, completing her nursing degree with honors before accepting help with a home purchase. Her disciplined approach impressed even my financial advisors. She became my closest confidant regarding wealth management, her pragmatic integrity making her perspective invaluable. The most challenging relationship to rebuild was with Emma initially, but through professional counseling and honest conversations about our different approaches to money, something new and stronger began to emerge. I learned that wealth acted as a powerful filter, revealing which connections were circumstantial and which were fundamental. Some friends drifted away when my status changed, while others remained steadfast. I made new relationships through foundation work, connecting with people who shared my values rather than my financial bracket. Money, I discovered, magnified what was already present in people's characters rather than fundamentally changing them. My generous parents became more openly charitable. My determined brother became more confidently ambitious. Emma's discipline became more strategically focused. Most profoundly, I realized the actual amount mattered little once basic security was established. The core questions remained. How would I live with purpose? Who could I trust? What did I value beyond material comfort? At our 1-year family dinner, I watched my parents laughing with Jake about his latest business story, saw Emma's daughter proudly showing her cousins a school project, and felt genuine warmth that had survived our most difficult year. The lottery had given me financial resources beyond imagination. But the real fortune was sitting around my table, people who knew me completely, had seen me at my worst, and had chosen to rebuild relationships anyway. When my father asked me to say a few words, I spoke from the heart. A year ago, I thought winning the lottery was about protecting money from people. Now I understand it's about protecting people from what money can do if we let it. Thank you for teaching me the difference. Later, Emma approached me on the patio. Would you do it all differently if you could go back? I considered carefully before answering. I would have been honest from the beginning. The testing wasn't worth the damage to trust. But I wouldn't give back what we've learned through this process. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. For what it's worth, you're handling it well now. The lottery had changed my financial status overnight. But the journey to genuine wealth, of character, purpose, and relationship, had taken a full year of difficult growth. The most valuable things in life couldn't be deposited in any bank, but they were worth more than any jackpot could ever be.